So the purpose of this lesson is to review the ASCA National Model. This is important to the course as it's important to understand where the resource and tools that we will be reviewing this summer course fit within a comprehensive school counselling programme. For your main project, you will be required to locate and evaluate online resources that support the different components of the ASCA National Model. And to accomplish this task, you'll need to have a working knowledge of ASCA National Model, which is why I provided the textbook, chapter and the narrated PowerPoint. In this lesson, I'll review the major working components of the model. So in 1997, the ASCA published the National Standards for School Counsellors. This event was a culmination of efforts to try and standardise the profession of school counselling. With the arrival of the school counsellor standards, professional school counsellors were encouraged to switch from a traditional focus on services for some needy students to a programme-centred services for every student in the school and by extension for their families and the community. Let me get off that little box that keeps popping up. The standards consist of 9 major standards, 3 for each in the domains of academic, career and personal social development, and suggested student competencies tailored to the student's developmental. The ASCA developmental level, The ASCA standards are often referred to as developmental, inasmuch as there are standards for every developmental level, and preventative, inasmuch as they are designed to build student knowledge and skill in an effort to reduce the occurrence of school-based problems. To expand on and integrate the ASCA national standards into a comprehensive framework that addressed the how of school counselling, the ASCA published the ASCA National Model, a framework for school counselling programmes, which was followed by the 2nd edition in 2005 and now in its 3rd edition in 2012. The model focused on professional mechanisms for student success. So the 4 quadrants, the foundation, delivery, management and accountability, and the 4 infused themes of leadership, advocacy, systemic change and collaboration, and teaming, which help give direction focus to the entirety of the programme. We will discuss each component of the national model in this narrated lesson. Another important set of professional documents that shaped the national model was the addition of the ASCA Mindsets in 2014. The mindsets and behaviours are based on research from the University of Chicago on non-cognitive factors influencing learning. Once again, these 35 standards apply to the academic, career and social emotional domains. So the ASCA National Model encouraged professional school counsellors to focus on local student needs, the local political context, and to use data to identify and meet these needs, as well as to document programme effectiveness. It emphasised 4 important themes of leadership, advocacy, collaboration, teaming and systemic change. These 4 themes are woven through the ASCA National Model, but really the heart of the comprehensive developmental school counselling programme is the 4 primary programme components. As I feel like I start to get repetitive, the foundation, delivery, management and accountability. So let's look a little closer at the 4 themes before we get into the heart of the 4 quadrants. Leadership describes the activities of professional school counsellors within the school and beyond to enact system-wide change to facilitate student success. Professional school counsellors work diligently to ensure that all students have access to vigorous academic programmes and close achievement gaps among certain groups, particularly minorities and materially poor. You've all taken or are currently taking Dr. Topsman's Closing the Gap class and will have some knowledge or are developing knowledge on how to enact leadership in the schools. So beyond the kind of conceptual focus, pragmatically, school counsellors are, very much part of the leadership team. As an elementary school counsellor, there was the principal, there was the assistant principal, and then there was the school counsellor. And often they were absent, and I was the operational leader of the school. So leadership isn't just a mindset, it's a reality. So it's really important as part of your professional growth is also to develop this notion that you are going to be a leader in the schools. So the second theme, advocacy, involves the systemic identification of student needs and accompanying efforts to ensure that these needs are met. Professional school counsellors help every student to achieve academic success by setting high expectations, providing needed support, and removing systemic barriers to success. I also like to think of self-advocacy in terms of helping students to develop self-advocacy skills. Self-advocacy is the ability to communicate one's needs and wants and to make decisions about the supports needed to achieve them. With the mindsets in mind, research shows self-advocacy skills are related to academic performance and successful adaptation to secondary and post-secondary settings. So that's also a really important part of advocacy. So collaboration teaming, we are not an island, and honestly, you cannot develop capacity in your school counselling program without collaborating with a variety, a cross-section of stakeholders. So collaboration teaming requires that professional school counsellors work with a wide array of stakeholders within the school system and community. Collaborative efforts should focus on providing students access to vigorous academic programs and other factors leading to academic success. You'll notice with the Ask a National model, the themes and the quadrants, everything funnels into academic success. Even though we may be supporting the social emotional growth, the overarching outcome for school counselling programs is for our students to be successful academically and, get into colleges and, be college and career ready and a thriving citizen upon graduation. So you're going to hear that academic success throughout this PowerPoint. And teaming, that also includes teaming with parents, educators and community agencies to develop effective working relationships. It's absolutely critical to achieving your program goals. Oh, I want to get rid of that. There we go. So systemic change encompasses a school-wide change in expectations, instructional practices, support services and philosophy with the goal of raising achievement and creating opportunities and access for all students. A focus on data-driven program allows professional school counsellors to identify areas in need of improvement, lead to alterations in systemic policy and procedures that empower students, and lead to higher performance and greater opportunities for post-secondary success. So remember, these are themes, so they're going to sound a little bit abstract. It's really, once again, it goes back to that mindset that, we are school leaders, we are working in tandem with all school-based stakeholders to promote student success. So taken together, these four themes really constitute the environment in which school counsellors work. The themes highlight the systemic nature of school counsellors' work and shift the locus of programming from reactive services and interventions to preventative, school-wide, future-focused programming. So let's now talk about the components of the national model. So whereas the themes establish the environment and culture of the school counselling, the four components provide the structure for everyday counselling operations. You'll often hear Ask a National Model school counselling programs referred to under the umbrella term Comprehensive School Counselling Programs, CSCPs. I'll use this term interchangeably to refer to a functioning Ask a Model program in the upcoming slides. So the Ask a National model is comprised of the foundation, delivery, management and accountability. It's important to preface a discussion of the model with recognition that delivery component involves indirect and direct services to students and accounts for 80% of school counsellors' time. The program foundation, or the what of the Comprehensive School Counselling Program, provides a clear foundation of what every student will know and be able to do as a result of their interaction with the school counselling program. The foundation in many ways is a conceptual rock of the school counselling program and includes the counselling program's vision statement that stems from a school counsellor's belief and philosophies, mission statement, student competencies, and other professional competencies. It's very important that school counsellors' program's vision and mission statement should be aligned with the vision and mission statement of the school and district. I've often heard a well-written program's mission, vision and goals described as the opposite of an island, as they are integrated into the school's vision of student growth and ideal student outcomes. Although school counsellors do not teach content area, their primary role is the promotion of student achievement, and this should be reflected in the vision and mission statement of schools. I encourage you to get online and look at some different districts and get on the school counsellor's homepage and have a look at their vision and mission statements and how do they interlock with the overall mission and vision statement of the district. In addition to the ASCA national model student competencies, the foundation should include state school councillor competencies, Common Core if applicable within your state, and even content area competencies relevant to the school councillor's grade level. So, for example, when I was doing guidance lessons, I would try and look at what are the reading competencies for this level, and try and interweave them into my lesson. The key advantage to a national model programme is that it provides a flexible framework to change programmes and practices as students' needs change based on the data. Therefore, school counsellors should avoid viewing any component of their CCSP as static, including the foundation. And as a result, school counsellors should constantly reflect on their foundation and modify their programme goals to align with current directions and efforts within the school. Meaningful integration of a foundation with one's everyday operations requires school counsellors to seek professional developments to ensure they have knowledge and skills to carry out their programmes. So as students' needs change, school counsellors may find themselves, not really equipped to deal with that. At that point, it's incumbent on the school counsellor to reflect on what are their professional growth needs and seek out professional developments. Oops, this little Mac window's back again. So the delivery. The delivery is the how of the comprehensive developmental school counselling programme. Programme components can include direct and indirect services. Direct services encompass all school counsellor activities where they directly interface with students. Direct services, by contrast, are those activities that impact students from behind the scenes, such as consultation, coordination, team building, leadership and advocacy. Gisbers, I think I butcher this name, so I butcher every name. So Gisbers and Henderson's conceptualization of comprehensive school counselling programme components is widely used to discuss programme. Sorry, let me start again. So Gisberg's and Henderson's conceptualization of comprehensive school counselling programme components is widely used to discuss programme components of student planning and inclusive of student planning, response to services, guidance curriculum, and system support. All these components fall under the delivery system. The school counselling core curriculum largely includes activities such as systemic developmental classroom guidance, parent workshops. Individual student planning assists students on an individual basis to establish personal goals and future plans. Responsive services denote activities inclusive of individual or small group counselling, crisis response, consultation, peer facilitation and referrals. System support includes programme maintenance through professional development and management functions. For your ASCA resource project, you will be tasked to locate resources to assist you to implement the guidance curriculum, individual student planning and responsive services. Because system support is the smallest allotment of school counsellor time and does not denote a consistent set of activities, it will be hard to locate specific resources to help in that endeavour. Therefore, I've omitted that component from the assignment. So let's explore the what of the school counselling core curriculum. This denotes the provision of a core curriculum to large groups. The nature of the core curriculum, often referred to as guidance, will depend on the resources available within your school. For example, in my school, we subscribed to a curriculum provided by the Boy Scouts of America. There was actually an evidence-based curriculum, but once again, it's really going to be dependent on what your district and school subscribes to. However, as you implement a guidance curriculum, whatever the nature of that curriculum, your lessons should address the ASCA national standards and relevant content area standards. Guidance curriculum consists of units on age-appropriate topics presented by either the professional school counsellor or a classroom teacher in consultation with the professional school counsellor. So, for example, if you know that the school is in dire need of some instruction around getting along with peers, and you know that this needs to be delivered in a timely fashion, sometimes it's more effective to teach the teachers the components of the lesson and have them go and disseminate it to the students, rather than trying to do a mad dash around the school to reach the ears of every student. Where am I at here? So classroom instructional units are not independent. They may be linked to classroom guidance units at other grade levels and or integrated into the school's core curriculum. Scope and sequence across the grade level is an important classroom guidance consideration. So, for example, if I'm doing bullying, typically I would do bullying at, I try and get it in the first semester quite early on in the year. And I would have the same template for all of the grade levels, but I would differentiate it based on the development needs and, the developmental learning needs of each grade level. So classroom guidance also includes activities specific to one grade level, such as senior year events in transition, particularly for kindergarteners going to first grade, and then sixth graders going on to middle school. An advantage of classroom guidance is that it enables service delivery to large numbers of individuals and addresses topics in a preventative manner. So through your guidance, you can touch every student in the school. And also it's a great way to get to know your school and your teachers and all your students. So the next area of focus within the delivery system is individual student planning. And individual student planning addresses the need for all students to plan and monitor their academic progress. This usually consists of individual and small group meetings to discuss grade and assessment data and to set individual goals. And really, individual planning should not be confused with individual counselling. The focus of individual planning is primarily academics. In the context of individual planning, the school counsellor may review student grades and encourage them to sign up for vigorous coursework, particularly AP classes. And this becomes very, a hot topic for middle schoolers and high school students, particularly if a student has consistently done well in his or her classes, yet does not have any college-aligned coursework on his or her transcripts. Alternatively, a school counsellor may meet individually with students who are failing grades to help them come up with a success plan. This may entail very practical strategies, such as helping them to organise their class material, implement a planner, or even help them to clear out lockers. I honestly spent much of my time in middle school helping students organise their lockers. So responsive services. This includes both direct and indirect services and addresses both proactive and reactive goals. Direct services includes individual counselling, small group counselling, and crisis response, whereas indirect encompasses consultation, collaboration, and referrals. So let's look a bit deeper at individual counselling. So through individual counselling, school counsellors meet the proactive and reactive needs of their student body. And given the complex and wide-ranging issues confronting students today, expertise in individual counselling is required. And it also it's incumbent on counsellors to continually update their knowledge and maintain their counselling skills. In the past, some professional school counsellors over-relied on individual counselling because it's often easier to deliver and schedule individual counselling rather than trying to figure out how you can get into the classroom, how you can organise a small group. Also, teachers often preferred their school counsellor to see students individually, as it was seen as more sensitive to their times and the overall school schedule. However, the ASCA perspective on individual counselling is that if professional school counsellors spend too much time with too few students, they will be perceived as therapists and really shortchange the student body. And ethically, you cannot be a counsellor to a population of 500 plus students. So extensive time devoted for individual counselling means less time for services included in the other programme components that can address the common needs of a large proportion of the student body. Professional school counsellors can collaborate with mental health professionals. That's absolutely imperative in their work without engaging in the role of therapist at the school. So as a general rule of thumb, a large proportion of the professional school counsellor's day needs to be spent outside the counselling office conducting individual counselling. So small group counselling and psychoeducational counselling, ASCA really do favour this as a form of for service work, because you can really reach so many more students than you can on an individual basis. And once again, it helps school counsellors to both react proactively and reactively to their students' needs. Group counselling and psychoeducational counselling offer a variety of small group experiences on relevant topics or issues such as study skills, effective relationships, bereavement, and post-secondary planning. And so, as I mentioned, group counselling allows professional school counsellors to address issues common to several students in kind of a one-stop shop. And also you leverage the benefit of peer relationships and just the therapeutic factors that go along with the group experience. Each group counselling activity consists of several sessions with a small group of students who explore their ideas, attitudes, feelings, and behaviours. Outcome research studies document that small group counselling frequently is effective, especially when focused on academic and personal development topics. Professional school counsellors also conduct group counselling services for others in the school community, such as parenting groups or new teacher supports groups. I'm actually doing a thread of research with my colleague at Memphis, looking at how how school counsellors can alleviate teacher burnout through various wellness programs. And you basically, the groups they're a time efficient, time and cost efficient method of service delivery. In terms of responsive services, crisis response is also going to be a major area of focus and something that school counsellors need expertise on. Most districts will offer a crisis response. They have a crisis response team and hopefully crisis response training for their individual counsellors. But it's definitely, if you feel like you're ill-equipped, it's something you should, seek professional development for upon entry into your school district. So crisis response is critical. Crisis response to critical and acute situations that require immediate intervention is an important counselling function. Crisis situations usually call for such immediate intervention because of the sudden onset. When you look at establishing your calendar, which is going to be important to the management, you need to make sure that you develop your counselling calendar with a very flexible approach in mind, because crisis situations can come up. They're recurrent throughout the school day, throughout the school week. Or sometimes there's a significant event, a death of a child or teacher, and you've just got to put everything on the table, all planned activities, and address the crisis situation. So the purpose of crisis response interventions is to diffuse the situation, serve school community members affected by the situation, and initiate the healing process. This may require direct services by the professional school counsellor. However, professional school counsellors may not be the only service providers in the crisis situation, and you're going to have to coordinate your efforts with other professionals in the business, such as school social workers and psychologists. Hopefully, as I said, you'll have a school-based crisis team, and that structure will already be in place, and you can kind of slot into that. But once again, really don't feel like you as a school counsellor can do all this crisis work alone. We need our other vested professionals and to work as a team. So professional school counsellors may lead or contribute to a committee review and update of the school school's crisis response plan to ensure it is current and accurate. Actually, at my school, I was responsible for the crisis response plan, and honestly, it's usually a pretty well documented procedures. And I had a counselling supervisor in the central office, and really I just worked with her, and she really gave me a lot of clues and guidance and support on how I can provide leadership in that area. So in crisis situations, professional school counsellors may also provide indirect services such as collaboration and referral, particularly, if you're dealing with bereavement and that you can't do grief counselling, the level of student need is beyond what you can provide in a school. You may want to make referrals to outside agencies. So consultation and collaboration are, major indirect responsive services in which professional school counsellors consult and collaborate with administrators, teachers, or parents to help them with student issues or concerns. Consultation and collaboration are cooperative processes in which professional school counsellors serve in the role as a consultant and help others in the school community to think through problems, set goals, and to develop skills that make them more effective in working with students. Similar to group counselling, it's a really cost-effective, time-efficient way of impacting student success from kind of behind the scenes. The consultation process of directly working with a second party, the consultee, to indirectly help the third party, the student. So Through our consultation activities, we can really impact a wide array of our students. So referral enlists the services of other professionals to assist school counsellors. Many students today are confronted with complex issues compounded by family, peer pressure, developmental and societal situations, and it's simply not practical for the professional school counsellor to be the sole service provider for these students. As a result, professional school counsellors enlist the services of other school professionals, the school psychologist, school nurse, school social worker, and other community agency personnel to address some student needs. And also think outside the box. It's not necessarily just counselling referrals. I actually work in South Texas. I work with the Coast Guard, and to create a mentoring program, because they were required to do a certain amount of volunteer hours. So it was a really nice symbiotic relationship. My students really got the leverage, the benefit of getting these great role models who have spent some wonderful quality time with them. And I really saw a boost in, some of the students' affect and their, engagement in school as a result of these mentoring programs. So don't think about referrals, don't necessarily just have to be referral to a counselling agency. Okay, so I've included this slide. I think this really helps conceptualize how your time is going to differ across the grade levels in regard to these major areas of focus. I see a little bit of a problem. Oh no, it's fine. It's just got an extra row. So as you can see, the distribution of school counsellors' time in the delivery system varies by grade level, and this really relates to students' developmental needs at different junctures in the school system. So we know that elementary students benefit from skill development, and really that's an essential component of preventative services at elementary, and this can be provided through large group guidance, and therefore it's not uncommon for elementary school counsellors to dedicate up to 50% of their time in the delivery system to guidance curriculum. And as you can see, as you go across the grade levels, that time allotment goes down, because honestly, in high school, the skills should already be developed. Their needs are going to shift to individual student planning. You can see in the elementary level, it was only between 5 to 15% of the time, because students at the elementary level, they're a lot less autonomous. I mean, the curriculum, their experiences in the class are very much, they're with the same teacher all day long. They take, fewer subjects. There's less transition. There's less connection to college and career. Whereas, by the time they hit high school, individual planning is absolutely imperative, that school counsellors make sure students are on track, that they're taking vigorous coursework, that they have all the credits to meet state standards for graduation. And so the allotment time of individual planning soars as we get to high school. But I think this really will help you conceptualize the delivery system component, how that alters and shifts as students' needs shift across the grade level. Let's see, I think I've got a little bit out of order here with my notes. So the management system element accounts for the when, why, and what authority of a comprehensive school counselling. And looking down this list, it's really, the organisational infrastructure of the school counselling programme. And you can really think about it, whereas the foundation is more the philosophical infrastructure, the management system is more, this is where you're the office manager for your own program. And so let's talk about the different components of the management system. So the use of annual agreements, formerly known as management agreements, are meant to help both professional school counsellors and school administrators to understand the goals of the school counselling program and to remove barriers to effective implementation of services to meet those goals. So what I would do is I would meet with my administrator at the beginning of the school year, and I would review, what my program goals were, and, getting her on board means that she, she would be supportive of me being able to accomplish that. So, and it just creates that line of communication and integration it just creates more of an effective partnership. So these agreements should be short and to the point, but they may represent a basic understanding of the responsibilities of program management. So advisory councils, these are also part of the management component. They provide a mechanism for feedback and evaluation of the school counselling programme's activities from a wide range of individuals. As I say, you are not an island, and to be effective and to build capacity for your programme, you need the input from a wide array of professionals. So the Community Advisory Council, also known as the School Counselling Advisory Committee, serves as a sounding board and steers the entire school counselling programme. The most important factor to consider when building an SCPAC is influence. So it's really important that you include the school principal, and if possible, the district, a district level principal or administrator. School counsellors should also aim to populate their advisory council with a cross-section of stakeholders, so parents, local businesses, counsellor educators for the local university, and teachers are all stakeholders who should be invited to serve. As a counsellor educator, I've served on a few advisory councils in Memphis, and it really helps to create that linkage across individuals and institutions, which ultimately strengthens one's school counselling programme. So management use of data in brief. Really, this is an entire class, so I'm just kind of skimming the surface of these components. So use of data, professional school counsellors monitor student progress and collect and disaggregate data to identify systemic issues that interfere with equity and achievement. And so, you can review, students who have taken AP classes, and, is a preponderance of Caucasian affluent students in those classes versus minority students who may be in regular classes, and if so, you would set program goals to try and change that, because we know that access to vigorous coursework and or participation in vigorous coursework is the number one indicator that colleges look at when they start to build their classes. So school counsellors can also collect, analyse and disseminate programme evaluation and closing the gap data. So once they've enacted programme, they'll produce reports to demonstrate how their programming has supported student access and achievement. So action plans are detailed strategies for achieving important outcomes. The ASCA outline the components of both school counselling guidance curriculum action plans and closing the gap action plans. So, so the guidance plans are more focused on the entire student body, whereas the closing gap plans would focus on those populations who have who've historically underperformed or underachieved in the school system. And so school guidance action plans usually contain the following information: the goals to be addressed, domain standards and competencies, the description of school counselling activities and the title, the timeline, the name of person responsible, methods of evaluating student success, and expected results for students. Once again, this information is probably going to be more relevant for your GAP class, but it's just important to understand what the management system is, and for this purpose of this class, what tools and resources can you use to really help you in that endeavor. So calendars, planning is an absolutely essential component of the program management system. Even though your calendar changes on a daily basis, you need to still have it populated with the major events. You need to schedule your probably Red Ribbon Week if you're in the elementary school, career days. I mean, everything, things don't happen in a vacuum. And those bigger projects take time, so it's really important to get your calendar down early on in the year. And so basically, if one does not plan for it, it just doesn't occur. Thus, professional school counsellors are strongly encouraged to produce weekly, monthly and annual calendars. Annual calendars should contain the school counselling classroom lessons, back to school night, open house, student parent teacher, meeting days, standardised test days, career or college nights, evening event activities provided through the school. So your annual calendar is really going to overlap with the district calendar. Whereas weekly calendars should contain classroom lessons, groups, individual counselling, meetings with students, collaboration, advocacy, data analysis. Your weekly calendar is going to be a little bit less static. It's going to be more flexible than your annual calendar. And I would also say these different components of the management system are not, they're not mutually exclusive. So, for example, your annual calendar, this is something you're going to review with your principal as you look at your management agreement for the entirety of the year. You want your principal to understand what you're trying to accomplish and your time frame to enact that particular goal, and perhaps how can she support you accomplish that. So assessments are also integral to the management component. So annually, professional school counsellors should assess how well they are implementing their competencies. Perhaps most importantly, school counsellors should review how much time they're spending on the various components of their programme in relation to how much time they should be dedicating to a particular area. School counsellors can assess their use of time through what is commonly known as a service assessment, or through collection of a time log. Hopefully we'll be reviewing some resources that will help, will help gather data about how you're using time. ASCA recommends that professional school counsellors should spend at least 80% of their time in the direct service activities, the delivery system. Also, fair share responsibilities, the final facet of the programme management, acknowledge that professional school counsellors are full participants of the school's educational team, and as such equitably participate in necessary responsibilities, even though these responsibilities may not be part of counsellor training. For example, teachers and administrators often have to do bus duties. So should counsellors. Where I take umbrage is if the school counsellor is doing all lunch duty and there's not a teacher, there's not an assistant principal or principal to be seen. Now that would be against this notion of fair share responsibilities. So moving to the accountability system answers the all-important question of how are students different as a result of the programme. Accountability is provided by professional school counsellors through analysing data from various sources that may speak the impact of their work. So first form of data, programme results, comprise outcome assessments that document changes in students through analysis of their performance within various programme components. An example might be academic performance changes as a result of participation in a study skills group experience. Monitoring changes in perceptions and process and attitudes can provide helpful evidence of professional school counsellors' effectiveness. The second form is performance appraisal of professional school counsellors, and this includes all local job and professional expectations that help to assess one's skill in implementing a comprehensive developmental school counselling programme. This function is often carried out by the principal, who evaluates school counsellors' work using local or state evaluation metrics. Programme assessment analyses, formerly known as programme audits, are conducted to ensure that the school counsellor's comprehensive developmental programme aligns with some set of standards, whether at the local or state level or within the ASCA national model. ASCA actually provide many resources for conducting programme audits, and such alignment is deemed critical in addressing the needs of all students. So it helps school counsellors, assess where their strengths are and where their gaps are. All these accountability processes are aimed at programme evaluation and basically continuous quality improvement. Finally, data analysis is a key facet of programme accountability and involves analysis of student achievement data and use of time assessments. So through programme results studies, professional school counsellors are particularly interested in identifying gaps in student achievement, sharing the data and information with colleagues, and developing individual and systemic interventions to address these needs. So data analysis at this level will often involve the data that's submitted that is published by the state, so the public information that really helps drive school goals and school activities writ large. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our slideshow or webinar on the ASCA national model. I encourage you to also read the textbook material, which will help further brief life into these different components, and take the quiz. The quiz is based on the information based on this webinar, but if you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to contact me.